All right, and welcome to 4670. This is week 3. We're going to go over homework 2. We are in the middle of AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. So, in this homework, in this lab, we're going to be configuring local user accounts, setting up AAA authentication, both with the local database and via a remote server. We will be doing that with both protocols, Radius and TACACS Plus. So, like other homeworks and some of the labs, um, we're going to look and kind of skip over the background scenario. We just need to pull out the passwords primarily. Anything that is concerned with testing, I encourage you to do it. So anything where they have you ping or look up logs, etc., um, do that. It helps you greatly, but it is not scored. So everything under the check results tab under assessment items, this is what you get scored on. Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and minimize this a little bit and get started. So this is also the first term that I've worked with the latest and greatest version of Packet Tracer. It looks like they have greatly expanded some of the offerings in here. Hopefully, they have expanded the command structures as well, or the number of commands they have per device. But anyway, in going through this, we need to configure the local users on R1, R2, and R3. So I'm going to start off here in step 2 by configuring the user admin1 on R1. So I'm going to click on R1, go to the CLI, go into enable mode, put my password in. There we go. And then go into global configuration mode and then put in the username. Admin1, privilege 15, secret, and I got to get the exact password that they wanted. Admin1 PA55. Okay, so I am setting them up with privilege level 15 already. Okay, and then we're going to enable AAA on R1 and configure authentication for console login using the local database, which would be that user. So we're going to, who remembers, if you've looked at the lecture this week, what is the command to start the AAA engine? AAA new model, excellent. New dash model. And you can tab complete it. There we go. And then the AAA command for authentication. AAA authentication, login, default, because we want the default list, local. So that should work.
I remember the AAA's, how does that work? What's
The AAA command?
yeah, I mean, what's the whole thing about the AAA that, why we use it?
AAA is used for authentication of users logging into systems. It's also used for authorization, meaning once you're authenticated and you're logged in, what can you do? What are you authorized to do? Think of AAA in the same terms as you would think of group policy objects, GPOs, in Microsoft. Okay, same exact concept. Okay, verify the user exec login using the local database. Okay, so what we'll do here is we will go back to check results. Ooh, looks like we got a few points here. So we got the authentication command is correct. This is a different authentication command. We have new model, we have the username. Looks like we're going along here pretty well. So if we miss something, we'll come back and we'll troubleshoot it in a little bit. All right, pressing forward. Part 2. Configure your local AAA for virtual terminal lines on R1. Okay, so this is going to be your other command. Configure a named list for AAA authentication for VTY lines on R1. Configure a named list called telnet-login for authentication logins using the local database again. So with that, when we go back to R1, we're going to have another AAA authentication command. This time we're going to call it telnet-login. Okay, it's a login authentication. And instead of using default, we're going to call it telnet, again, this is case sensitive, dash login. And it's going to be tied to the local database, local. All right. So I think I missed a step. Yeah, so I've got to go to the console line and tie the default to that, and the VTY lines and tie telnet-login to that. So let me go back and do the console line, line con 0. So the command here is going to be login authentication default. All right, simply put. I'm going to exit that, and I'm going to go into the VTY lines to do the telnet-login. So line VTY 0 space 4. Login authentication. And then you can't tab complete this. You've got to type it in exactly the way you put it in before. Telnet-login. Okay. So we'll exit out of that. We've done part 2, step 1, step 2, and then to verify the telnet configuration from the command prompt, we can telnet into R1 from PC A, or we can just go back and check our results. Wow, we went from 3 points to 10 points, and as you can see, we've completed everything thus far on R1. Any questions so far? All right, good. Let's press on. All right, so moving back here, we've gone through part 1, part 2. Now we're going to get into server-based AAA authentication. So with server-based AAA authentication, we're not going to use the username and password that we create in the router. We're going to point to a separate server where the usernames where the users exist. So if you look at the topology, what we just did with creating the authentication mechanism for R1, we place those users, or that user admin1 in R1. Now for R2 and R3, we're going to do something a little bit different. The users that we're going to use for logging into R2 and R3 already exist on the TACAC server and the Radius server. So if we were going to the TACAC server, for example, we go to services, we go to AAA, okay? You will see that we have a client R2 here already, and we have a username admin2 that exists there. Okay, so when we set up the AAA scheme for R2, we don't need to make a username. It may ask us to do it as a backup, which I think as part of this they will do. But right now we don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to get out of the TACAC server. I think we do Radius first, though, if I'm not mistaken. So part 3. Nope, we do TACAC first. Okay, perfect. So configure a backup local database entry. So they do make a local user named admin2 on R2. Now this is for the purpose that if that TACAC server ever goes down and we're trying to log in, we're not locked out. We have a backup method of logging into the infrastructure. So I am done with R1. I'm going to close that router out, and I'm going to go into R2. There we go. Go into the CLI. And go into global configuration mode. And now they want me to create a username admin too. Privilege 15. Secret. Admin 2 PA55. Okay. We're now going to select TACAX plus server. And from the services tab, click on AAA. Notice that there's a network configuration entry there already. We did that. We looked at that. We're going to configure the TACAX server. We already checked that. It has the proper IP. We need to look at the secret key for that. So I'm going to pull up that TACAX server and go back to the services. So you see here that they have a TACAX key, TACAX PA55. That's what we're going to have to configure in the router. All right, so one step at a time. Okay, configure the AAA TACAX server IP address and secret key on R2. So here, the command to do that is TACAX-server host, the IP address of the server, which in this case is 192.168.2.2. And if you're ever in doubt, because it's not showing up on mine, you always go to the. Where's the. There we go. There it is, 2.2. Okay. So R2, host 192.168.2.2. All right. I'm going to hit enter there. I'm going to go back up, and this time I'm going to put the key in, which is the secret key, which I believe it is also in your instructions. You just have to find it. I think they have it up here in the. Do they? Maybe not. Okay, well, we know what it is. It's TACAX PA55.
Professor's a key, almost just another way to protection really or something?
It's a password, yeah. It's a password. So if I'm going to authenticate users off of a TACAX server or a Radius server, I have to have that secret key, and it's got to match up. It's also using the algorithm to encrypt the traffic between the two servers so that the password of the user is not sent in the clear. So TACAX PA55. Enter. All right. So we've configured the user. We have configured the IP address and secret key on R2. We now need to configure AAA. Okay, for console access. So we need to start AAA with the AAA new -model command. And then the AAA authentication login. All right, default. And then the group TACAX Plus. Okay. Now we also want to do a backup to local. So you can chain the sequence of how the router will check for authentication. So right here, we're saying the default is for it to check TACAX. Now at the end of this command, I can tell it what's the second. If you can't contact the TACAX server, what's the second method? Okay, you can do this up to 3 times. So we can do local. All right, so that command there matches up with this AAA on R2 and configure all logins to authenticate using AAA TACAC server, and if not available, then the local database. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Enter. And then configure line console to use the AAA authentication method. So we're going to go into line con 0 and then login authentication default, because that's how we set it up. All right. Step 5, configure line. Oh, wait, that was what we just did. And then we're going to verify the AAA authentication method. So verify the user exec login using AAA TACAX Plus server. Okay, so right here, they did not make us do any VTY lines at all. Now we can go back and check our results. Let's go ahead and close out our thing there. And it looks like R2 is all set. Okay, so any questions so far? We've set, yes?
For TechX, I saw that there was a different privilege levels. Are we not implementing that in this?
Let's go back here. Okay. Services, AAA. What are you talking about?
So, during independent research, I saw that TechX, you can have different privilege levels for the shared key.
Mm-hmm.
And then are we not implementing that in this project?
Not in this, no. So you can have different keys assigned to different groups for different purposes based on level of privilege that you want to assign. That's how that works. Okay, so you can have a group just for junior admins that can maybe only do show commands, and a group for senior admins that can configure the whole box. It's a good question. Okie doke. So going back here, we're done with R2. Let's close that out so we don't make any mistakes on it. And let's go on to, I think we're on part 4 now, and we're going to talk about radius. So similar concept with setting up radius as we did with TACAX. Commands are almost identical, except you replace radius you replace radius where you put TACAX. All right. So let's go ahead and open up R3. Okay. And let's see what they want us to do here. So from here, we're going to configure admin 3 as a user. Okay. Then we're going to select the radius server and check out its configuration. So we'll go into it real quick. Here's your radius server. So it is 3.2. Let's remember that IP address. So under its services for AAA, we'll see that we have radius PA55 as the secret key, admin3, who has a username admin3PA55. The client R3 is already set up. We don't have to do anything. All right. Now we need to configure radius and its secret key on R3. So again, very similar, radius server host 192.168.3.2. And then radius server key, which was RADIUSPA55. And then they want us to go in and configure that same type of schema for AAA. So let's start up the engine, AAA new dash model. And then set it up for console access. So AAA, authentication, login, default, group, radius, local. So this is for number 4. We're enabling authentication for the radius group and if not available for the local database. Okay. Then we're going to go into line con 0 and login authentication default. So that takes care of step 5. And then step 6 is the check. So if we go back to, oops, our check results, we will see we are done. Okay. So that's basically how to set up AAA for authentication. We didn't touch authorization. We didn't touch accounting, just for authentication. But if you do not get authentication set up, you can forget authorization and accounting, and it's not going to work. All right. Key concept, key takeaway. Authentication has to happen first before authorization or accounting. Okay, so with that, we're going to close out this homework assignment. Would go ahead and save it, put your name on it, upload it to Blackboard for your credit, and we'll call it a day for now. So thanks for attending this homework lab. We'll see you next time.